you want to kick off season 4 or you want me to kick off season 4?
The kickoff of season 4.
This is the kickoff of season 4.
Oh my God.
We have been at this for 3 years.
Go at the same time.
All right.
How does this start?
Hello, elegant listeners, and welcome to Go, My Favorite Sports Team.
Hello, elegant listeners, and welcome to Go, My Favorite Sports Team. These are my nipples. Why didn't you keep going?
I didn't know what you're doing.
These are my
nipples.
These are my
eyes.
These are my ears, and these are my thighs.
See, I got it. I got there eventually. I got there. Welcome to season 4 of Go, My Favorite Sports Team. If you are new here, I have a master's degree in sport and entertainment business. I studied sport.
That's different.
It's called sport administration, but it's sports, but it's entertainment. I have a master's in science. It's actually really funny. It's an MS, but
you've never said that before.
it literally says I found my master's degree when I was at home.
Oh, finally.
And it says a master's in sport and exercise science. That's what it says.
But no entertainment. I'm not questioning the science part of it. I'm questioning the entertainment.
But it is the focus of my entire degree is around the business of sport, which in and of itself, the business of sport is entertainment. So they go across, they go like this. They like mesh. They're like very similar.
Interesting. Okay.
But I did find my master's degree. I have a picture of it on my phone.
Sure you do.
Okay, fine. Okay. Yeah. Sure.
In the age of AI, you expect me to believe that?
You think I'm smart enough to use AI?
It's so easy, even dumb can do it.
Yeah, but I'm too smart to be dumb to do it.
What?
Exactly.
Okay.
But that's Markiplier, the man, the myth, the legend himself.
I can't claim to not know sports now. If I did, I would have been held back 3 years now, and that's just sad. So I'll say I know sports a little bit.
How much do you think you know?
A little bit.
Do you think you know well enough for what we are doing today in redefining how we qualify what we categorize as a sport?
See, I don't know why we need to
You're the one who said we needed to reset the guidelines.
I don't remember ever saying that ever in my life.
You said it like 6 times.
I don't think I've said that ever. I think I was just questioning why you were changing the definition.
I never changed the definition.
You change it all the time.
I told you exactly what it is.
Loosened it. You flexed it.
I don't think I loosened it. I think I've kept it just as tight.
Okay. All right.
Just as close to the chest.
Then why do we need to requalify?
Because I think we need to tell the audience here what things make something a sport versus not a sport. What particular qualities something needs to have to be designated as a sport as we discuss it on the podcast.
Gotta have gambling.
That
can't be a sport without gambling.
Nope.
That's what everyone says.
That's what the world seems to think. Yeah.
What do they call it? You get a squabble. You get a pick me. What is it called when
parlay?
That thing. See, I don't have the app, so
a pick me.
A pick me.
It's a pick me girl.
A squibbly. You know,
that's what sports are. They're just a bunch of pick me girls and pick me guys.
Anyway, yeah. So don't gamble, everybody. It's stupid and dumb, and I don't care how many ads they put on this podcast. They're all bad, and they should all be banned.
I agree.
They should all be made illegal, which once it was, but for some reason.
Do you know why it was made illegal?
We probably talked about it, but why?
It was because of fixing games and organized crime, and with relation to, especially when it came to college athletes, being able to coerce them or force them to do things in order for them to get paid or not get killed. And also there's too much emotion already tied to sports and sport fandoms that when you start adding money to it, people start kind of becoming crazy.
So are you saying that now that gambling is legal in certain apps, is there organized crime occurring? Is there fixing of games? Is there people dying?
There is a belief, and a significant belief. In fact, recently, a number of people were posting, apparently on Meta, Facebook somewhere, that the reason some NFL officials got fired recently this year and at the end of the year was because they were being bribed to adjust penalties with relation to how it would affect the scoring outcomes in favor of the house winning.
It makes perfect sense. I mean, people have been saying for years that their like games are fixed.
They're scripted.
They're scripted. They might as well be, because if they're trying to follow the script of I want to make money on this game, then yeah, it would make a lot of sense. And there's been so much video evidence of refs making questionable calls that isn't gambling fixing things. But then there's some things where it's just too many coincidences in a row.
Chiefs. Oh, sorry.
That it just doesn't make a ton of sense why some calls are made.
It also has always seemed, and this is somebody who's been following American football for years and years and years, that officiating seems to always have been in the favor of the team that has a larger market.
Yeah.
So like New York-based teams that have bigger fandoms, the Pittsburgh Steelers, San Francisco 49ers, New England Patriots. The Patriots. The Infleetriots with Tom Brady at the helm. The Bucs when Tom Brady went over to the Bucs. And obviously more recently the Kansas City Chiefs, especially with Taylor Swift dating Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
Because Swifties, go Chiefs!
But at the same time, it's strange because sport and the sport world is an empire unto itself. So a lot of these times when there is game fixing, it is hard to quantify that as being illegal.
Yeah.
In a sense of getting it to a judge and in front of a court case to talk about it, because it's all handled internally. If there was fixing, then yeah, this firing makes sense because it means that it's being handled internally.
Which also is interesting because places like ESPN and people who have vested interests in the sport outcomes. So ESPN owns the broadcasting rights to SEC football, which is the Southeastern Conference football. And so they have vested interests in broadcasting particular games, and they now have developed their own gambling system. It's just that becomes so much more internalized into the entire sport of itself, as opposed to it being, it's casinos in Vegas that are complete separate entities.
Yeah.
The other thing that I find interesting with that is something that just escaped my mind.
Okay.
It just, gone.
Well, then I'll talk about what I'm thinking, which is just in this sphere of game fixing for money. It speaks to a lot of what I think a lot of people have trouble with in these games, because games and sports, as we get into the definition of it, comes down to one of the rules was equal opportunity, but that wasn't it. It was
repeatability.
No. It was
objective result.
Like level playing field.
Integrity. Competitive integrity.
That's a very important thing in sports, and it's something that gets lost when money gets involved. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad, because capitalism, glorious capitalism, does move the wheel of progress forward. That cannot be denied. For as many flaws as capitalism has, there is still a motivational reason for money. We all just need to acknowledge that money isn't real, and that some things are more valuable than money ever will be. Yeah. But in the realm of sports and entertainment, what people still want to see, I believe the majority, is integrity in those sports, honor, respect for each other, your teammates, and being
the game itself,
respecting for the game itself. And when you get people that are cheating in any capacity, it is universally frowned upon, unless it's for your team. And so that's where things go wrong, I feel like. That's where these lines shift a little bit, because it should be universally abhorred, any kind of cheating, especially any kind of game fixing. It should be punished incredibly. It should be absolutely abhorred and found out. People should be in these organizations finding them. But lines get nudged, both from the fan side of people being like, it's okay if our team had a few good calls or bad calls in our favor because it helped us. And then that's like, okay, well, all right. And then the line gets a little muddy of like, they're cheating, but you were cheating. Oh, man, but we need some more money. We need more eyes on this game. The line starts to move and that integrity gets lost. And so it's very much, you can't be super hard line about everything, because otherwise you're seeing enemies in every shadow and every ref is bad and making a bad call. But that paranoia is bred from the lines getting muddy.
Yeah. And then one of the biggest things that I've always talked about with sports, for something to be a sport, the result needs to be viewed objectively. So if you're objectively watching something and the result becomes what it is, this is something I bring up all the time in judge sports, is you need to have an objective scoring system, because anything that has opinions or bias that can occur, you want to eliminate that. There's always going to be opinions and bias when it comes to a person scoring something, because they see something or think something's cooler than something else. But you want to limit that down to be as objective as possible to make the sport repeatable, and then therefore easily able to determine who a winner is, and it's always going to have a similar result.
And, there's an interesting part of this that kind of touches on what I was saying that I just thought about, is something I've recognized in YouTube and in large crowds and in a lot of people that are out there in terms of everything that they're looking at. No matter what, humans need something to complain about. It's boring otherwise. So that's why I say, it's not a hard line. There needs to be a little bit of questionable stuff, or else people won't have anything to talk about. This is why people reject computer system for umpires.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100%. Because it also goes back to the tradition of sport, but you need to have something to where the human element is a factor.
Yeah.
Because when you're making calls, and if a computer chip can determine exactly when somebody steps on first base and exactly when the ball hits the glove, all of a sudden it's like, oh, we know that for sure it's an out. So then there's nothing to be discussed. There's nothing that's intrigue to bring people into.
There's no emotion in the batter, like getting upset at a call that he disagrees with. There's no audience getting upset. There's a line, of course, it gets too much, but these checks and balances need to be put in place. That's the important thing. In many things, checks and balances are very important. Not thinking of anything specific other than
sniper. No, not again. It's the King of Conkers and his 3 snipers.
Oh, man, it's a damn shame. Anyway, checks and balances. People do need a bit of that drama because it makes it interesting. It cannot be robotic. People do need the emotions in it, and they need to feel like there was some human element in it and human error, because that does spark conversations. In everything, like nowadays, life is full of conveniences that are largely technologically driven. I always prefer having something to complain about. Using a shitty piece of equipment sometimes is good because it makes you appreciate the really good stuff, and then you earn your way up. If you have the really good stuff that solves all your problems and you don't find any problems, it's really boring, and you don't know you're not learning anything.
Well, and even on top of that, regardless of how advanced computers get and how advanced AI gets, unless it gets insanely to the point to where it's as capable as the human brain, you're still going to have the issue of connection. And it's something that I noticed recently. I had an issue with a product that I got. Apparently, when they had updated the website, they said it was compatible with this 2.4G adapter. So you could control it remotely from your computer. And I have a new computer that doesn't have Wi-Fi and it doesn't have Bluetooth because it has a workstation motherboard. And I was like, oh, great, this will work perfectly for what I need. I bought it and everything, and all of a sudden, it doesn't work with 2.4, but I'm getting different answers from the various different things and part of it is the human element sending emails. And it wasn't until like a month later, and this just happened earlier this past week, I got a phone call from one of the guys who works over there, and we actually had a conversation. And he's like, oh yeah, it happened during the update. We have since updated it. Really appreciate you letting us know. Made sure you got a refund, and here's a gift card. But no matter how many emails I went to try and explain, it ended up bouncing to a different person because the computer would direct it to a different person, and I'd get the same questions again. And it was just incredibly frustrating going in a circle. And so that ability to actually be on a phone call to explain the unique situation that some things can occur, that it doesn't fit into the boxes everything's prepared for, is such an important element in every aspect. So that comes into play with sport, in that you need to be able to have that ability to be like, oh, well, there's a potential that a chip could malfunction and be a little bit off, and then being able to have that discussion with the umpire, or having the different umpires have slightly different strike zones makes the pitcher and batter have to think differently and strategize how they approach the plate more. And that's just a unique example, but it's the same thing with like officiating. In the NFL, some officials let hand fighting between a wide receiver and a cornerback go a little bit more without throwing a flag. And another one is like, you grazed them, and that's a penalty. So I think that human element is such an important key, both for discussion, but also to bridge the gap of when, it's not going to be a perfect system. No matter how accurate we can get with computer chips, it's not going to be 100% completely 100% accurate and perfect.
You know what would be 100% accurate and perfect and people would love? You have dogs watching the camera feeds that were trained specifically to recognize what was interference and what was not. Like you get a whole bunch of footage that you train a dog and you're like, bark whenever you see something like this, but not when you see this. Dogs are extremely accurate. Extremely accurate.
Especially when it comes to smell.
Exactly. Not that would play in this, but
it could.
How?
Smelling people who drug dope.
Okay, I'm talking about like a positive interference. Okay. Anyway, or a dog trained on the sidelines to be like, if that ball goes even a little bit over the line, yeah, that would be really cool. And I think people would be okay with that.
I honestly think you just created this whole new avenue of what people want to watch. You remember how there's that YouTube or a live stream that's 24/7 and it's a gate for where fish come, and people watch to then be able to open the gate so the fish can get through.
Why would they want to see fish come?
No, it's a gate. So these fish are trying to traverse a certain direction, and there's a gate to keep them from going one way or another because it has to do with some sort of water system. And predators were constantly preying on them because they would get stuck. And so they created this live stream to where people can watch, and when a fish comes to the gate, like arrives at the gate, they can trigger the gate to open so the fish can get through.
I see what it is.
And so I think having a dog trained to do the barking, people would just tune in to just watch the dog and wait for the dog to bark.
And then it doesn't have to be an official call, but it's like a dog is there as a consultant, and it's like, well, the dog barked, but the ref didn't call that, Something like that. Interesting.
Dog versus ref. Fight.
Well, maybe not the dog fights,
No, the dog just yell fights. It's like me and my dad's trained Walker Coonhound Ruby, where she starts her bay, which is what hound dogs do. It's their like, and then I yell back at her, and then we're just yelling in each other's faces, and it's really funny.
That's good.
That's the type of fighting I mean, not like, no. Yeah.
Not fish coming.
Not fish coming.
Not dogs fight.
No, we already had that. You had people watch the salmon video.
When was that?
Oh, I don't remember. A while ago.
Oh, well.
We were talking about something. I don't know.
And you. That's it.
Another interesting thing, there was somebody that got really upset about us being like anti-gambling and not being like anti-alcohol.
I'm anti-alcohol.
I don't like advertising for alcohol. I don't like advertising for drugs in particular. Like, doctor, you should think about this drug. I hate that. But they were like, why aren't you adamantly against this? And it's, well, we're a sports podcast and gambling is a regular thing. Yeah. But an advertisement for alcohol on TV is very different than having active spreads and everything on TV for gambling. And the reason for that is you can't consume can't consume alcohol through the internet. Mm-hmm. You have to actually have the thing to drink it. Mm-hmm. And while it may be triggering to see alcohol advertisements, it's totally different case when it comes to gambling because it is immediately accessible in that moment and immediately thrown in your face. You're not immediately given a glass of alcohol in front of you from the TV.
And there's interesting regulations about alcohol advertising that do not seem to play for gambling because if you've seen an alcohol advertisement, beer or otherwise, no one in that commercial ever takes a sip.
Yep.
They don't drink because they're not allowed to show it actually being drank. Same with cigarette. Cigarette advertisers are they got the images on the packaging and like, this will kill you, But with gambling, there was someone who did a video about this just recently where it's like they show people not just playing, not just gambling, but winning. Every time in the advertisement, someone wins.
They don't show the losses.
Yes, never. And they show everyone winning. That should be fucking illegal.
And the only thing that they have to put is gamble responsibly, which is like, I get drink responsibly because it's supposed to be like, don't drink and drive. But gamble responsibly is a totally different mindset, because in that sentence itself, gamble is the action of consuming what that object is. Because with you say drink responsibly, it's not saying drink alcohol responsibly. Alcohol isn't even in the word. It's not the verbiage. The verb of the actual sentence is the action in which is a problem.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is, let's be clear. I don't think that alcohol should be banned nationwide. Sports betting should not be legal because of the extended ramifications that it has. And I know people are like, well, alcohol has extended ramifications. But that's where the tricky thing about freedoms come in. Is like, yes, cigarettes are going to kill you. You can smoke them if you choose. And secondhand smoke is a thing, which is why they're not allowed to smoke in public. And that's the kind of fences you put around it. Because as soon as your freedom starts spilling over to affecting other people, that's when problems start to awry. And that's when the safeguards need to be put in place. And gambling currently has, well, sports gambling has no safeguards.
And the crazy part is that it used to. We have repealed that. It's kind of like, you know, how we had the FAA and they would regulate stuff, and then all of a sudden people were fired, and the FAA, now there's more issues.
I don't know what you mean. Don't know what you're talking about. It's completely different things.
Completely different
things. Regulations are bad. Yeah, all of them. Yeah, cut it out.
Listen. If I had control over everything that got in my way and made me have to spend more money, and I could get rid of them, I'd just be like that guy that owns Twitter.
Yeah. I think kids are the best coal miners.
Yeah.
They have tiny hands. They can get into the small caves.
They've got tiny bodies. They can crawl into the small crevices. They can stay lower from the toxic fumes.
I think they like it. I think they love it.
It's a fun time for the whole family, but mainly for the kids.
And the family, they get extra income, and you don't have to pay them as much because they don't do as much work. But there's more of them. They're being pumped out all the time. I think people should be making more babies so we can get them in their kill mines.
It's like how we do with trees. You know, we just plant new trees when we cut down other trees and just make new babies when we...
It's the same thing. Sure, you cut the trees down a little early every other year.
Babies. It's got a ring to it.
It's got some kind of a ring to it. Anyway, this has been our facetious segment /S/S. Please
put a nice disclaimer on that for us editors.
It's after the fact. I feel like we should be allowed to joke a little bit and people understand. Yeah. But like, that's the safeguards, right? With drinking, I don't drink. It'll kill me.
I actually am not drinking at all this year.
But I like NA beer. Weirdly enough, I like non-alcoholic beers, what that stands for. And it's like with guns, right? Guns is another thing where it's like that, that's a right. That's in the Second Amendment. It is there. It's in the Constitution. But there should be, I don't get why people have a problem with licensing for it.
Or, having to get training and having to, like, register it like a car.
And I know that people are like, well, cars aren't in the Constitution. It's like, yeah,
but cars aren't entirely built around the purpose of killing something.
Yeah, exactly. There's very few purposes. Even if you do sports shooting, you cannot deny that your gun is intended to harm.
But the foundational building of the first gun was literally for the purpose of harming other humans.
Or animals. I'm not sure if it was for humans specifically.
Correct.
It might have been for hunting.
And then people are like, well, what about bow and arrows? I'm like, dude, do you know how much skill you have to get to be able to shoot a bow and arrow? And
with modern, composite bows and pulley bows and crossbows and stuff, it is a little bit easier. And it's dangerous. But there's a line. I get the people that are like, it should be protected. And this is with alcohol, not just talking about guns.
Yeah, we're talking about all of these in a grand scheme of things.
We're bringing it back to sports. But the people that are like, it should be absolutely all one or absolutely all the other, that doesn't gel with the world we live in and the humans that we have, because human error has to be accounted for. It has to be allowed for, not just restricted. You're not trying to computerize it and completely cut it off, but you have to allow for human error to be compensated for. You have to understand that people have the rights to do the things that they want to do, whether it's gamble, whether it's drink, own a gun, whatnot, smoke, but there is errors in judgment that need to be accounted for and compensated for. Not monetarily compensated. I mean, adjusting the policies. That's what these
especially as technology changes over time. Like we have to adapt to new technology, whether that's how much guns have advanced or whether that's how much replay or computers or AI, all of those things. We need to take into account technology and how it advances and how that plays a factor into the overall use case and danger of certain particular 100%. Scenarios.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that I totally understand the people that are very much on the defensive about certain rights. And I'm 100% okay. I get it. Not on board, but I get it. And we're all humans. We need to have these conversations. And we need to have some conversations about a lot of this. And sports betting, I think we can all agree, unless you're horribly addicted to it right now, which you may not have the right wherewithal to agree, it's not a net positive. I think we can agree on that.
One of those elements that clearly makes whoever built it and whoever has larger amounts of money to take all of that in to make more money.
Yeah. Sorry. I know this is skirting the edge of political conversation. We typically avoid that, but it's hard to in today's day and age with everything that's going on.
It's very difficult.
And sports very much does, as much as they would probably like to deny it, it does tie into the political world.
Oh, massively.
Massively.
The sports were a major platform for the entire civil rights movement.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah.
In a massive, massive way. You've got people like Jackie Robinson, Jesse Owens. Like those prominent people were given the opportunity to have a platform in front of massive, massive stages where they otherwise wouldn't be able to, and took that opportunity to make an impact to shed light on the wrongs and issues that were going on.
I'm just trying to, I know. Yeah. You know who didn't like Jesse Owens? Hitler.
That's true.
Didn't like him.
Nope.
Showed him up at the Olympics.
In Germany.
And in Germany, too. Yep.
Oh, well.
What can you do? Anyway.
And that was actually a massive, massive impact for the people in Germany that were going through really, really rough times, is having that ability to see that they are better than the way they were being treated. But to jump into sports, because the easiest way for me to transfer into sports right now is to just jump into some news.
Okay.
So there was this really cool thing called the Four Nations Face-Off. Have you heard about this?
Is this hockey?
Yes, this is hockey.
Okay, yeah, I did catch up a little bit on this.
So
talk about politically charged.
A little bit. But there are 4 teams that were invited to be a part of this tournament. And I believe this was the first year of its occurrence, 2025. So this is brand new. And so the teams that were involved were Canada, Finland, the United States, and Sweden, because they were ranked as the top in the top 6 of the worldwide governing body of International Ice Hockey Federation. While Germany ranked 5th, they didn't have enough NHL players, and it was all based on having NHL players. And so in this tournament, they basically played round robin against each other. And then whoever had the most wins and points at the end would play in the championship. And so it ended up being US beat Canada in the round robin. Ended up being by 2 goals, but it was 1 goal, and then they scored an empty net goal. Canada ended up beating, I believe, Finland. And then they ended up being in the championship against the United States again. And so the US and Canada faced off for the second time. In the first instance, in the first 6 seconds, there were 3 fights.
I love that.
3 fights broke out in the first 3 seconds of the initial face-off between the United States and Canada.
I thought that was the first game, though, in the
round robin, not in the final.
Yeah.
And they just went at it. And then the U.S. ended up coming through and winning that game. But then in the final, it went to overtime. And in overtime, Canada won by scoring an overtime goal. I believe it was the second overtime, defeating the United States.
I didn't see the game, but I read a synopsis of it. That game was nuts. The Canadian goalie went Super Saiyan mode.
Yeah.
That's what I heard. Everything was saying like he shouldn't have blocked all the shots that he did block, but somehow he blocked them.
But we had to talk about it because this is a brand new event and it's going to be run basically around the International Hockey Federation. But the amount of viewership and the amplitude of like fan excitement was immense. Yeah. Was really cool. In our Discord itself, we have a big hockey group in our Discord of Distractigo who hopped into a voice chat during the game.
Yeah, that's cool.
But it was just, I had to highlight it because it was a really unique event that just launched at the beginning of this year. And it ran from February 12th to February 20th. And it was just the turnout and everything about it was filled to the brim with excitement from fans of the NHL and fans of hockey in general.
And you know what I liked after it is after Canada won, because before during the round robin there was a bunch of fights. Because anyway, but afterwards it was a lot of the Canadians and Americans just like being like, that was a fucking great match. That was such a good game. That was, even though Canada won, which honestly, like, they should be a little better in hockey.
Considering the majority of NHL players are from Canada or from the northern states towards Canada.
Yeah, and so it's one of those things where it's like it was nice to see them come together because honestly, before this nonsense,
politically charged tension between the two countries.
If you had polled the average American what their opinions on Canada and the Canadian people, it would have been like 90% positive. Yeah. I'm sure it was.
Oh, yeah.
Then for some magical reason, I bet if you polled a week or two ago, it would have been like 50-50, good, bad, for some fucking reason. It doesn't make a goddamn bit of sense. But hey, sports seem to bridge that and heal a little bit of that.
Well, and that's always kind of been the goal and sentiment around the Olympics and around international play is to bridge, different cultures and bridge different communities to come together over some similar passion.
Yeah. And that's kind of the thing. And that harkens back to what I was saying about like the human error and the human element part of it. Integrity is like when you struggle with a fellow human, when you struggle together or struggle against, and a game is a very safe way to do that most of the time, you kind of see each other at that base primal level. We are both animals, and we are both trying as hard as we can to do the same thing that we have trained all our life for. I see the skill in you, you see the skill in me, and it's like it really does just automatically level that out. It's like, boom, level playing field. I see eye to eye, don't even have to speak the same language, but it's like, okay, I get what you're about. And I think that is one of sports' greatest strength. Yeah. Is that when you are in that pit, doesn't matter who's in the stands, they can't see each other. But when you're in that pit with the other players, you really do connect in a way. And that's where tempers can flare and fights can break out for sure. But at the end of the day, it's like you're all really good at what you do and you can't deny that.
And it's also one of those things that even though people get in fights, particularly in hockey, usually at the end of it, there's a level of respect that's between both the opponents. We talk about this in boxing and like the touching of glove. It's like, a lot of times you can amp up and people are like, I hate you, you hate me. But seeing the result at the end of the fight, a real actual boxing match, it's like, yeah,
for sure.
Respect.
Yeah. I think that, some people lose sight of that. A lot of people who say, in previous, sports, big platform for protests, Colin Kaepernick is probably a name that comes to mind.
Yep.
And I think what people need to realize is, as much as they are trying to be like, oh, we need to protect the integrity of the game, is like, that's disrespectful flag. I think it's like, if people just put the perspective in a little different way, where what's a situation where people kneel in sports when someone's injured?
Yep.
And from the perspective of Colin Kaepernick, imagine he's looking at, the nation and his fellow man as injured.
Yep.
And he kneels because that's it's just paying a little respect. In a way, I don't think it's disrespect at all. I think it's actually the whole thing, I was like, that's an extremely respectful way to do it. But people took offense to it just because.
So there's an interesting thing. He actually had a conversation with a Marine. And the Marine had reached out to him being like, yo, sitting during the national anthem is really disrespectful. And Kaepernick was initially just sitting because he didn't that was his way of protest.
Right.
And so he had a conversation with this Marine, and apparently, I think it has to do with like a ceremony of a fallen soldier and stuff like that. There's kneeling involved.
Yeah.
And so he said kneeling would be a way that, while it is showcasing something different, it's a sign of respect. Also, on top of that, the national anthem is not the same as like the Pledge of Allegiance was. It never was a thing that you necessarily would cover your heart for or anything like that. In baseball, it was very common. People would just stand there holding their hands and hat off as a sign of respect.
Yeah. And I think that's an interesting thing, because I think I knew that. Maybe you told me that a while ago when we were talking about it a couple years ago, but it is a thing. Like, humans all know that kneeling has some meaning to it.
Yeah.
Kneeling in feudal days, pledging your loyalty to your king, or your fealty to your king, or, it's humbling yourself. And Korean
it's a sign of respect.
Korean society, bowing. And the lower you bow, the more you are like showing respect. And it's one of those things where the ultimate apology is like getting as low as possible on the ground for that, or the ultimate sign of respect. And so I feel like people lose sight of these things. They get caught up in what they see and not the meaning.
Well, even going into the Bible, because I've read the Bible, I'm not prescribed to any particular religion, but Jesus Christ would wash feet, and to wash their feet, he would kneel. And that was a sign of like, I'm the same as you, and I'm showing you significant respect. Those things coincide across so many different cultures that, to me, it just made sense.
Yeah, it's being humble, like showing humility. And I think that, people can get the signals mixed up sometimes when they see something that they instinctively disagree with. But when it comes down to Canada, let's say, it all comes from a lack of respect. That's the basis of why this is so offensive to the Canadians, is because it's just fucking a lack of respect, especially for all the history the Canadians have put to arm in arm with the United States. Like, they might as well be our brothers, they might as well. Practically are. Our cultures are so intertwined, but still separately distinct. But it's because we have been allies for so fucking long.
I mean, when the U.S. entered world wars, Canada would send some soldiers along with the U.S. troops.
Oh, yeah. All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. For every war, every single conflict that America has been in.
And so people need to understand like the history that exists. It's like the history of our relationship, of like how long we've known each other, the stuff we've gone through. Yeah. Like, there's a level of, you need to acknowledge that as you go on throughout life. When we have an issue or something like that, we know, hey, what's up?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Anywho,
in other cool news, after the Four Nations, we have the youngest WTA 1000 champion with a victory in Dubai. Teenager Andreeva was crowned as the winner when the 17-year-old beat Clara Tauson in the Dubai Tennis Championships yesterday.
That's pretty cool.
So the youngest ever to win the World Tennis Association 1000 title. I believe that's what that WTA stands for.
Yeah.
Which is really cool, seeing younger athletes getting into the higher prominence. For whatever reason, that's always kind of been a case in tennis, but it's starting to become a case in other sports as well. I think there's a really young hockey player in the NHL that became a star instantly, just because of the amount of skill and talent that they had and what they are capable of. And receiving that highest championship at this particular event is a major accomplishment for the 17-year-old.
That's great.
Yeah. Now, Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, about time. I was getting depressed.
Some research has been done over the last WNBA season.
Some research?
Caitlin
Clark research?
Caitlin Clark research.
Okay.
And the transformational impact on the WNBA she has had. So one of the biggest things is this 23-year-old, Caitlin Clark, helped drive the WNBA to its most watched regular season in 24 years and its highest attendance in 20 years. A total of 31 WNBA matches last season averaged over 1 million viewers. 22 of them involved Caitlin Clark in the game. So that's only 9 that did not involve Caitlin Clark. In more detail, the regular season games were watched by all of Caitlin Clark's regular season games were watched by 1.2 million viewers on average, which was a 200% more than in games she didn't play in. Statistic that's impossible to ignore, right? One of the biggest things that people cry out about is like Angel Reese also is bringing up the WNBA. Well, the average attendance of the Indiana Fever was 17,300, which was a 320% rise since the previous season for the Fever. And that attendance average is 5,000 more than the next highest team and double what the Chicago Sky team that Angel Reese played for average of 8,500. It's impossible to not acknowledge the fact that Caitlin Clark carries the WNBA right now in a massive way. And the issue is, the reason they did this research is the warning is how dependent is the WNBA on Caitlin Clark's health and success and staying in the league. Because merchandise sales and television, 1 of every 6 tickets sold at a WNBA arena can be attributed to Caitlin Clark.
1 in 6.
1 in 6. Ooh. Whether that's attendance, merchandise sales, and television. Furthermore, the study showed that WNBA TV viewership is up 300% due to Clark, and 45% of total broadcast value came from Fever games.
Nice.
Which means ad revenue, the value.
Yeah.
This has sparked a debate online because they demonstrated a drop-off in attendance and viewership when Clark wasn't playing. Basically saying if Clark wasn't playing, nobody cared, or way less people cared, practically. And one of the biggest lines is, if you take Caitlin Clark out of the WNBA for a second, where would Angel Reese be without "You Can't See Me"? Somebody added another line, something she did like "You Can't See Me" in, I think, the national championship when LSU beat Iowa when they're in college.
I don't know.
So that's the biggest thing that made Angel Reese show up on the map, according to a lot of people. And so basically, if Caitlin Clark didn't exist, this explosion for women's basketball would not exist.
I think that is very fair.
And that's based on statistical analysis from
I don't think anyone that denies it is just denying reality at that point, because it is so very much obvious that it is. And this is going to come off as like kind of an insult, but whenever there is a, say, Coke, there's a Pepsi.
Yeah.
Whenever there's an Uber, there's a Lyft. And I'm not saying that it's worse than the other. That's not what I'm saying. It's not as popular.
Although right now Coke has fallen off massively.
Oh yeah, that's actually true. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, who else to sponsor us? No one? Ah, shit. But what it comes down to is, it's not a bad thing to have people cheering on Angel Reese and trying to bring her up into the spotlight, because it's what I've always said, inspiration is the most valuable currency. Just because Caitlin Clark is blazing a trail, it rises all ships, because everyone on the other teams that she plays with are going to work harder because they're like, fuck.
And everyone loves a rivalry, too.
Everyone loves a rivalry. They're like, if she's doing that, I got to step up my game. That's what you need. That's the inspirational currency, is you just like, and all this can be attributed to Caitlin Clark, and also all it can be attributed to the human element of everyone else being like, what about me? That's competition. And that's what's beautiful about it. It's like, you got Rocky and you got Creed and you got all their opponents all being like, you're at the top. I want to fucking rip you down. Yep. I'm going to work my ass off just to wipe that smile off your face. That's part of the beauty of humanity. As much as people might not like that, as much as I don't like competition, how it makes me feel, I get really angry really fast, but oh man, I love a Rocky movie. I love a boxing movie.
Same.
Oh, God,
The Rocky movies are one of my all-time favorites.
I love the Creed movies. I haven't seen Creed 3, but
I would argue that the Rocky trilogy, we don't talk about Rocky 4.
Why not? You didn't like the robot?
The Rocky trilogy is amongst one of the top trilogies in the history of movies.
Yeah, I'd say it's very, very good. Wait, was the Russian guy in 4?
Was Russian in 4 or 3? Oh, it's 4.
He's
the 4. It's the 4.
Maybe don't talk about
we don't talk about 5.
Yeah, we don't talk about
4
5.
is good. 5, yeah.
Yeah.
But Rocky Balboa, the remake, not a remake.
Balboa was awesome.
Balboa was a great film.
Yeah. But what I'll say is people get angry about it. And this is what I was saying, like, once it spills too far, like with the gambling, with the smoking, when it spills too far into the animosity and the anger, people are buying too much into it.
Instead of taking something as objective, which is what we are trying to do.
Yes.
For the record, we are being objective. There's nothing about subjective with relation to who these people are.
And it's all about checks and balances. It's a good thing that people get really riled up about things. It's a bad thing when they're so riled up that say they are climbing the walls of a certain building.
Yeah.
With flags.
Yeah. And injuring people just doing their jobs.
Anyway.
I think it's about time, unless there's jacuzzis.
No, actually, I tried to look. I couldn't find any. We're doing such a good job.
That we start talking about what defines a sport.
Okay.
And so one of the biggest things, I love doing searches on this and looking up definitions to create a baseline, right? And we've talked about sport and how we categorize it in a lot of ways. So according to Oxford Language Dictionary,
oh boy,
a sport is an activity involving physical exertion and skill in which an individual or team competes against another or others, and it classifies for entertainment.
You know, we didn't throw that goddamn tea party for me to have to listen to some British nerds and tell me what my words mean.
Would you rather I go to Merriam?
I want Webster. Is he American? Is Webster American? I think he is. American.
All right.
American spelling book, American lexicographer, educator, and author. Noah Webster. Yes.
These are interesting. The noun of sport, a source of diversion, recreation. 1A. 1B, sexual play. Does this mean sex is a sport?
It's Webster has declared.
Apparently. And 1C, a physical activity engaged in for pleasure. Or 1C2, a particular activity such as an athletic game so engaged in.
How did you spell sport?
SPORT.
Not SEX?
No.
Not that? Are you
sure?
I'm looking up this definition to confirm.
I'm on their website.
You're on sport 2 of 3. But it is there.
The sport 1 of 3 is the verb, though. See, I had to go to the noun.
I don't know if Webster was quite
I don't think
right.
Webster was right. Let's go back to Oxford.
Let's go to Oxford. I've always thought Webster was extremely silly.
He's up there with Kellogg.
You know, this is why when you're learning another language, it's so hard to actually get an understanding of what they are. Because you'll get shit like this and you'll be like, I don't know.
I wonder if when somebody's like, we say sport, they're like, sex? You watch you watch sex?
I don't think there's that many people that do that. I don't think that's a risk that we're having. Now it is.
Now it is.
But
now
you know, that's because they're all depraved lunatics. Them.
Oh.
You.
I thought they were elegant.
Depraved now.
Depraved listeners. That's what we're going to address.
Good evening, depraved listeners. Welcome to Fuck.
So to expand on this.
Fuck team. I'm sorry.
Welcome to Fuck Team. What is this? The group sex competition?
No, I don't want to blow everything up.
So to expand upon this, instead of just going to the straight definition of the word, I decided let's see what the internet has to say about what makes a sport. All right. And so according to Google AI, we're going to start with Google AI. A sport is a physical activity that involves skill and competition and is generally recognized as a sport. It can be a mental activity that involves strategy and intellect, and then it defines physical activity as involving physical exertion or dexterity, can be casual or organized, and can be competitive at all levels. Obviously, skill, eye-hand coordination, precision, strategy, or mental acuity or intellect. And then also it says recognition is under here, recognized by organizations, governing bodies, or governments. And then it lists examples of sports all there. So consideration. Whether an activity is considered a sport can be debated. For example, some organizations don't consider activities without a physical element to be sports. However, others recognize competitive non-physical activities as mind sports.
Mind sports.
I'm mind sporting you right now.
Don't mind sport me.
I'm mind sporting you.
I'm not consenting to this mind sport.
I'm mind sporting you.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't feel like that's any better.
No, I don't think so either.
I'm mind sporting you.
Blow them up.
Ah!
Now, there's a place called clearinghouseforsport.gov.australia.
.gov.australia?
Which is AU. They classify sport as a human activity involving physical exertion and skill as the primary focus of the activity, with elements of competition or social participation where rules and patterns of behavior governing the activity exist formally through organizations and is generally recognized as a sport.
Mm-hmm.
I get rid of that last line, and that's roughly what I think of when it comes to a sport.
Okay.
I think when it comes to a sport, the key elements in here, physical activity or exertion, skill, organizing body that recognizes it and governs it. We added, when we talked to my brother, the idea of it has to have a world champion or a pinnacle mark, right? So a competition that's like, this person is the best. Like every year the NFL has the Super Bowl champion, or Major League Baseball, the World Series champion. The Olympics has the gold medal and silver medal and bronze. So there's a way to have championships. The other one that I think is really key is objectivity and repeatability. That means if the same things were to happen at the same time, regardless of whether you switch out the officials or judges or anything, officials probably not so much interchangeable, but mostly the result is the same. You have a clear winner. There's not subjective opinions played in. So like, say, judging music, for example. It's very difficult to objectively judge music unless everyone is playing the same exact piece. Because then it's like, oh, I kind of like the way this song sounds versus the other one. There's a subjective bias that can occur. Therefore, if you switch out the judges, a lot of times the result completely can vary. Whereas in gymnastics, they have objective judging where they have a clear criteria and therefore determine it from that criteria of who accomplished the best. Like the difficulty level, increasing the score potential, and then everything else is a deduction that's listed. And then for me, the last thing that I think is important, there are not finite possibilities.
There are infinite possibilities?
Correct. But that's like in the things that can happen through the course of the competition.
Oh, okay.
So like there aren't set moves you can do like in chess.
Okay.
How there's a limit of different combinations and different moves. There has to be a human element to where, oh, this person like did a crazy flip that we've never seen before. For example, Saquon Barkley's backwards hurdle. That element of there's a immense amount of possibilities that we cannot even fathom that can occur throughout the process of the competition. So that like strategies, like there's obviously rules that you have to follow, but also the human element of like, I could have my arm snap while I'm throwing a football and it goes like way to the left, or a baseball, the way the air is holding it makes the curveball hang as opposed to doing what it normally would do.
Yeah.
So there's a level of elements that cannot completely be quantified to have a finite result and finite possible activities throughout the process of the sporting game or match. And I think those are the key factors for me of defining a sport. Do you agree to those rules?
Fine. I've never disagreed with them. They seem to sound familiar to the previous ones.
We added a couple.
I don't remember.
The possibilities thing at the end, and then having a crowned champion.
All right, fair.
Is there anything you would want to
Why
add?
would I know anything?
You have learned over the past
you put
3
the
years.
integrity's
in there. Competitive
okay,
integrity.
Well, that's all I got. Gambling?
No, gambling. Gambling is not a sport. That's why poker is not a sport.
What about competitive drinking?
No. Well, yeah, maybe.
Well, we talked about guns. Competitive shooting is a
Competitive
sport?
shooting is a sport. Competitive drinking could be a sport. Don't highly recommend doing it. There is a human element to it. There are multiple possibilities. Somebody could randomly butt chug or ear chug or something crazy.
Some brew could have been slightly under or over.
That's true.
The alcohol percentages.
But then we add in battle bots, esports, interesting things that fall into categories of, are they going to fall into those classifications that we have to examine?
Have we examined? I thought we did.
We have not examined esports. We have not examined battle bots.
We have not examined esports?
Nope, we haven't. The reason I haven't examined esports yet is because it becomes really hard to understand when you have different players and that can have different abilities, right? and their strategy with that. Whereas just straight up skill based ones that you can talk about are like Call of Duty or like Rocket League, for example. Everyone has the exact same character, exact same boost and model. Like the car slightly varies stats wise, but that's like Mario Kart also. But when you get into things where you have different ults, different abilities, they have different weaponry, it gets a little bit messier and harder to look at it in the sense of how can you judge somebody's skill versus somebody else's skill, whereas, and there's a level of strategy there. It becomes too complex for me to try and understand to qualify whether it's a sport or not.
Okay.
Like League of Legends, for example, or Marvel Rivals.
I just don't get how they're not bored.
I kind of agree with you.
Yeah. I mean, I do understand. I played World of Warcraft for a very long time. I also got bored of it within like one expansion.
Do you think World of Warcraft would have been classified as an esport? Are there raids against other like clans or?
There are definitely competitive raids that go on. There's PvP that goes on in the same way as other things. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's not different from the other esports that are out there.
Because it's like each class has different abilities, but then gear is an element too. And
I just think, aren't people bored yet?
Yeah.
But at a certain point, you do something for so long, you get baked into that, and it's really hard to change. That's why I try to do all sorts of different stuff all the time.
Well, and that's, I feel like I'm the same way. The interesting part is some people like, aren't you bored of sports? Because it's the same thing over and over too. The only difference, I think, is the amount of physical exertion that occurs within sports.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's deeply biological, because like we as humans, it's like, okay, this is going to be a weird comparison, but would you ever get bored of sex?
Probably not.
Probably not. I said probably not, because it's kind of a biological imperative.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, some people not, obviously.
Yeah,
we're
people
not
that are ace and
we're not blanket sweeping anything, but most people probably not. And that's why sports, because you at home, this is the, thinking outside of your own mind for a little bit, is you may be like, I don't like sports at all. I don't want to think about sports. Just like some people are like, I don't want sex. I don't want to think about sex.
Some people don't like video games.
Some people don't like video games. I don't want to think about video games. For some of the other people, that taps into a kind of deep primal part of the brain. The need for exercise and exertion is universal. It's a need.
And we as humans like to compare each other. It's also kind of in our own brain.
Also just entertainment. We like to be entertained. We like games. Always have. From the moment you're a kid, you like games. I don't care who you are. You like games.
What kind of kid were you? You just stared in the corner of the wall?
Dirt. Well, actually, yeah, there are some people like that. Okay, not everyone likes games. That's the cool thing. But the common ground is that everyone does have one of those things that they like. There's no one out there that likes nothing.
That we know of.
There's no one. I'm gonna put that out there.
Because even if they don't like things, then they like not liking things.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're just trying to be different.
Yeah, because liking anything is just, it's a matter of perspective.
Yeah.
Boom.
Take that.
Go stand in your corner and watch the shadow. Make sure it doesn't move.
Ooh, dance.
No, it doesn't move.
Oh.
The shadow in the corner. Not your shadow. I was like, there's shadow.
Oh, but mine to dance.
Yeah, but that's your shadow. I'm talking about the shadow in the corner. Go stare into the corner and make sure the shadow doesn't move.
What is this, shadow of another object?
No, it's just the shadow that naturally occurs in corners because it's a corner.
But if you light it right, there's no shadow.
Yeah, but no.
But then if you're out, what if you're outside? Shadows
You're
move all the time.
You're the people that are like, oh well, what aboutisms is what's gonna destroy me? And so shut up. What about? Oh, I'm sorry. All these corners, these are flaws. Fix these corners and their goddamn shadows in them.
Also, since it's the brand new season of GMFST, we talked about the definition of sport at the very end. That's how we bait them. They have to listen to the whole episode to get to it. I was curious if you would like to reveal any stories that you withheld in previous episodes, like how the power washer got clogged with blood or anything like that.
Power washer got clogged with blood because I wanted to capture a high-speed blood spray. And I was like, hey, a power washer could definitely do that. And it did for a little bit. And then it got clogged.
Was it real blood?
No.
Pig's blood?
No.
Oh, fake blood.
It would have been probably better if it was real blood. Honestly, it wouldn't have clogged as much.
somebody was like, I can't believe he threw it out. He could have just cleaned it out. And I'm like, how do you clean out the inside of a power washer?
I really tried. I really did. Yeah.
Yeah.
That stuff was caked in there.
Yeah. So people were going crazy. They're like, oh, he never told the story.
Mm-hmm. Any other story? I don't remember what I
can't remember any off the top of my head. The which one was true? Double true or whatever it was. I don't even remember.
I don't remember any.
Yeah.
Accuse me.
Yeah, bring all your jacuzzas in. Also, check out the new art. We have new season art. It's actually really cool. I don't know if you noticed, I actually themed the lights in the room around the colors of the new art. Blue for the sky and orange is the kind of the elements of what the skydiving.
I thought it was always a blue-orange contrast.
From the very beginning, it was red and gray.
Red and gray?
Or red and like beige.
How'd you get a gray light? That's impressive.
It just made you colorblind.
Fuck. It's the light that makes you colorblind.
Oh no. That's going to do it for the episode. Go check out store.gmfst.com. I think it'll be updated and we'll have some new stuff for you there. So go check that out. Use the reddit.com/r/GMFST. Send your jacuzzas, episode ideas, episode suggestions. And also, if you pester me in the Spotify comments, I just make that episode further and further away. Talking to you, lacrosse people. Anything else you want to add?
No, I got nothing. No, don't hurt me.
That's going to do it. Thank you guys so much for enjoying. Thank you guys for helping us get to season 4. And we will see you next week for the new episode of GMFST. Bye.
Bye.